My name is Dr. Lenora Quinn, diagnostic radiologist, 17 years reading scans for a living. Last Saturday, I walked into my brother's backyard in Mobile, Alabama for his wife's gender reveal party. Sloane spotted me the second I stepped through the gate. She was glowing white sundress stretched tight over the bump, and she practically ran over with that glossy 4D printout in her hand. "Look, Lenora. Our little princess is perfect, right?" She shoved the photo under my nose, eyes shining. They even gave us the heartbeat bear. I took one look. The shadows were wrong. The facial contour had that telltale smudged edge I'd seen 100 times when I used to moonlight reviewing images for Keepsake Studios. Same recycled stock overlay, same lazy Photoshop blend on the nose and chin. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. I forced a smile, handed the picture back, then grabbed my brother's wrist before he could walk away with another beer. Knox. Laundry room. Now. He laughed at first, thought I was joking. When he saw my face, the smile died. Inside the empty room, I closed the door and kept my voice low. "That's not a baby in the picture." His whole body froze. "What the hell are you talking about?" "I'm telling you right now, whatever she's carrying, it's not a princess. It's not even a pregnancy." The muffled countdown for the balloon pop started outside. 50 people chanting, 10, 9, 8. I looked him dead in the eye. "We have minutes before that balloon explodes and changes everything. Listen to me. Have you ever looked at an ultrasound photo and suddenly felt ice run down your spine? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And whatever you do, don't click away, because what happened next destroyed my entire family." Knox was still holding his beer thumb, rubbing the cold aluminum like it could erase what I'd just said. He let out a short, sharp laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Here we go again," he muttered. "Lenora the perfectionist strikes. Sloane's finally happy for once, and you can't stand it." I opened my mouth to answer, but the sliding glass door burst open behind us. Mom marched straight in pink team girl sash across her chest, face already flushed from 2 mimosas and 5 years of waiting for a granddaughter. "What's going on in here?" Thelma Quinn demanded, eyes narrowing at me. "People are asking where the aunt-to-be disappeared to." Knox rolled his eyes. "She's doing her thing, Mom. Says the ultrasound picture is fake or something." Thelma's hand flew to her heart like I'd slapped her. "Fake Lenora, that little girl has my nose. I've been staring at her every night before bed." Dad appeared in the doorway a second later, balancing 3 plates of cupcakes. Floyd Quinn had been quiet all afternoon, but now he set the plates down and gave me the same disappointed look he used when I brought home a B in 8th grade. "Sweetheart," he said gently, "you work too hard. You're seeing problems where there aren't any." I tried anyway. The shadows are inconsistent. The facial proportions repeat exactly like stock overlays I used to flag when I consulted for those boutique studios. This isn't a real fetal face. Mom waved me off before I finished the sentence. "Those places are blessings." Sloane said the technician spent 45 minutes getting the perfect shot. They even let her pick the music for the video. Knox took a long pull from his beer. "You're embarrassing yourself, Lenora. And you're upsetting Sloane." Through the glass, I could see Sloane on the patio laughing with her college friends, one hand resting on the curve of her belly. She looked radiant. She looked like every hopeful mother I'd ever delivered bad news to, except this time the bad news was standing right behind her with a forced smile. I swallowed the rest of my explanation. They weren't going to hear me. Not today. Not with 50 guests and a giant black balloon waiting to decide the rest of their lives in pink or blue confetti. "Fine," I said quietly. "Let's go back out there." Knox exhaled like he'd won. Mom looped her arm through his and steered him toward the door. "That's my boy. Come on, your wife needs you for pictures." Dad lingered a second longer. He put a hand on my shoulder, the same hand that used to check for fever when I was little. "We love you, kiddo. But today's not about scans and shadows. Today's about family." Then he walked out too. I followed them back into the sunlight. The DJ had started the music again, some upbeat pop song about little girls and sugar and spice. Sloane spotted us and waved me over, eyes sparkling. "Everything okay?" she asked, reaching for my hand. I squeezed once. "Perfect," I lied. She beamed and pulled me into the group photo. Someone shoved a big sis sash over my head. Cameras flashed. Mom was already tearing up. Dad raised his plastic champagne glass for a toast, about finally getting the granddaughter he'd prayed for every Sunday. Knox stood behind Sloane, arms wrapped protectively around her chin, resting on her shoulder. He caught my eye across the circle and gave me the smallest shake of his head, the same one he used when we were kids, and I tried to tattle about something he'd done. Message received. Drop it. The countdown girl, Sloane's best friend from work, grabbed the giant pin and started the chant. 50 voices joined in. I stood there with my phone up recording like everyone else, smile glued on while my heart hammered against my ribs. 10, 9, 8. Sloane squeezed my hand so hard I felt the bones grind. 7, 6, 5. Mom was crying openly now, clutching Dad's arm. 4, 3, 2. I closed my eyes for half a second and prayed I was wrong. 1. Pink confetti exploded everywhere, sticking to sweaty arms and landing in champagne glasses. Screams of joy ricocheted off the fence. Sloane spun in a circle, both hands pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks as Knox lifted her off the ground. Mom rushed forward first, wrapping them both in a hug so tight I thought she'd never let go. She kept kissing Sloane's belly through the dress, whispering my granddaughter over and over like a prayer finally answered. Dad pulled out his phone, filming with one hand while wiping his eyes with the other. Strangers hugged strangers. Someone popped another bottle. The backyard had turned into pure celebration. I stood frozen in the middle of it all, phone still raised, recording on autopilot. My legs felt like concrete. Sloane broke free from the crowd and threw her arms around my neck. "We're having a girl." She squealed into my ear, the scent of vanilla and baby powder thick around her. "You're going to be the coolest aunt." I hugged her back because there was nothing else I could do. Her body shook with happy sobs against mine. The party rolled on. Cake was cut. Gifts were opened. Someone handed out tiny pink onesies. Knox kept one arm around his wife the entire time, grinning so wide his face had to hurt. Eventually, the sun dipped lower and guests started gathering purses and kids. Tables were folded. Trash bags appeared. I carried a stack of paper plates toward the kitchen when I heard Sloane's voice behind me, quieter now. "Hey, I don't feel so great." She was leaning against the patio table, one hand low on her abdomen. "Probably just too much sugar, but it's kind of cramping." Knox was there in a second. "You okay, babe?" She tried to laugh it off. "Too many cupcakes." "I'm fine." But her face had gone pale under the makeup, and the way she kept shifting her weight told me everything. I'd seen that exact discomfort on 100 patients. I set the plates down. Spring Hill is literally 10 minutes away. I know the charge nurse tonight. Let me drive you just to be safe. Knox hesitated, glancing at the half-cleaned yard. Mom overheard and immediately waved him off. "Go. Take care of my girls." She said it with this soft, dreamy smile, like the universe had finally delivered her order exactly as requested. Sloane nodded weakly. "Yeah. Better safe than sorry, right?" Knox grabbed her purse and the diaper bag someone had already gifted them. Dad clapped him on the back. "Call us the second you know anything." We walked to my SUV in silence. Sloane slid into the passenger seat, Knox in the back. The leftover pink confetti still clung to our clothes like evidence. I backed out of the driveway while Knox rubbed circles on his wife's shoulder. "It's probably nothing," he said, more to himself than to her. "Maybe indigestion." Sloane leaned her head against the window. "I just want her to be okay." I kept my eyes on the road. 12 minutes door to door. I'd made the drive 1,000 times. The ER entrance was quiet for a Saturday night. I badge swiped us through the staff door so we skipped triage. The charge nurse Carla took one look at me and waved us straight to an ultrasound room. Sloane lay back on the table lifting her dress without being asked. Knox held her hand so tight his knuckles went white. Carla squirted gel and placed the probe low on Sloane's belly. The room filled with the familiar whoosh of the machine. I stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed, watching the screen the way I'd watched 10,000 others. And there it was. A large, complex mass filling most of the left ovary. Cystic areas, solid components, thick septations. No gestational sac. No fetal pole. No heartbeat. Carla's eyes flicked to me. She knew exactly who I was and what I was seeing. Sloane stared at the ceiling, waiting for the money shot that never came. Knox leaned closer to the monitor. "Where is she?" His voice cracked. "Where's our daughter?" The room went perfectly still except for the hum of the ultrasound. I finally spoke soft, but clear. "There is no daughter, Knox." Sloane turned her head slowly toward the screen, like she was just realizing the image wasn't going to change. Knox kept waiting for someone to tell him it was a joke. No one did. Dr. Elena Morales walked in, white coat, flapping hair pulled back in the same messy bun she'd worn since residency. She took one look at me and understood everything without a word. "Lenora, you want to run this or should I?" I shook my head once. "You do it. I'm family." She nodded, rolled the stool over and took the probe from Carla. The screen refreshed with a cleaner, higher-resolution image. The mass dominated the left adnexa, 15 centimeters, multiloculated, mixed solid and cystic components, vascular flow on Doppler. Classic complex ovarian mass, no intrauterine pregnancy, no yolk sac, nothing. Elena turned the monitor slightly so Sloane could see clearly. "Sloane," she started, voice gentle but clinical, "there is no pregnancy. What we're seeing is a large complex mass on your left ovary. It's been growing for a while and it's pressing on everything around it. That's why you've been feeling movement and why your blood tests came back positive for pregnancy hormones. Some of these masses produce HCG." Sloane stared at the gray and black swirl on the screen, as if it might rearrange itself into a baby if she looked long enough. Her lips parted but no sound came out. Knox finally found his voice. "Wait. What? There has to be a mistake. She's 22 weeks. We've seen the heartbeat. We have videos." Elena kept her tone even. "Keepsake ultrasound boutiques are not regulated the same way hospitals are in Alabama. They're not required to have a licensed sonographer or a physician review. Some of them enhance images. Some use stock footage. Some do worse." Sloane's hand slowly dropped from her belly to the bed rail. The color had drained completely from her face. Knox stepped closer to the monitor, eyes darting across the image like he could will a fetus into existence. "This can't. We paid extra for the 4D package. They let us record the heartbeat." I spoke for the first time since we entered the room. That heartbeat was probably a recording they play for every client. It's the same 30-second loop. Sloane turned her head toward me, slow, like her neck had rusted. Tears slid sideways into her hair. "Why would you do this to me?" she whispered. Not angry, just broken. Knox's gaze snapped to me. Confusion, betrayal, panic, all fighting for space on his face. "Lenora, tell me this is some sick joke." Elena answered before I could. "It's not. We need to admit her tonight. Gynecology oncology is already on call. This mass is big enough that we'll need surgical removal probably tomorrow morning." Sloane's breathing turned shallow and fast. Knox grabbed her hand again, but his own were shaking now. Elena continued. "The good news, if there is any, is that these are often benign. Dermoid endometrioma, cystadenoma. Lots of possibilities. We won't know until pathology, but the majority in women your age are not malignant." Sloane let out a sound that wasn't quite a laugh and wasn't quite a sob. "Benign. Great. I grew a 15-centimeter non-cancerous lie instead of a daughter. Knox looked like someone had punched him in the chest. He kept opening his mouth and closing it again. I stayed by the door, arms folded tight, feeling the weight of every second. Elena printed a few still images and handed them to Sloane. "These are real. This is what's actually inside you right now. I'm sorry." Sloane took the prints with trembling fingers, stared at them, then let them fall to the floor like they burned her. Knox finally looked at me, eyes red. "You knew. Back at the house. You knew, and you let us pop that balloon anyway." I didn't answer. There was nothing that wouldn't sound cruel. Elena stood. "I'm going to get the consent forms and page Dr. Harrison. Lenora, maybe step outside with me for a minute." I followed her into the hallway. The door clicked shut behind us. She leaned against the wall, exhaled. "I'm sorry, friend. That was brutal." "Yeah." My voice sounded far away. "It's only gonna get worse." Back in the room, Knox had pulled the chair as close to the bed as possible. Sloane was curled on her side, facing away from him, shoulders shaking with silent crying. He kept rubbing her back in slow circles, whispering things I couldn't hear. I stood in the doorway a moment longer, then turned and walked down the corridor. The pink confetti was still stuck to my shoes. The recovery room smelled like antiseptic and stale coffee. I stood outside the glass, watching the monitors climb back to normal. Dr. Harrison had taken the left ovary and tube laparoscopically, 3 tiny incisions hidden under pink bandages. Pathology called it a benign mature cystic teratoma, classic, dermoid hair teeth. Fat the works. Nothing malignant. Sloane would keep her fertility. On paper, the best possible outcome. I waited until the nurse gave the thumbs up, then walked in carrying the world's weakest bouquet from the hospital gift shop. Sloane's eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling tiles. She didn't turn when my shoes squeaked on the linoleum. "Hey," I said softly. "Surgery went perfectly. You're going to be fine." She gave the smallest nod, nothing more. Knox sat on the stool beside her, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tight the skin had gone white. He glanced up, offered a tired half-smile that didn't reach anywhere important, then looked back at his wife. I set the flowers on the rolling table. Pain under control. Another tiny nod from Sloane. The silence stretched until it snapped. I started to speak again, but the door opened behind me. Mom walked in wearing the same pink cardigan from the party, now wrinkled and smelling faintly of barbecue smoke. She took one look at me standing by the bed, paused, then stepped around me as if I were furniture. She leaned over, Sloane pressed a kiss to her forehead and whispered something that made Sloane's chin tremble. I waited for the usual hug, the "thank God you're okay," the hand on my arm. It never came. Instead, Mom straightened, gave me a polite, distant smile, and quietly closed the privacy curtain between me and the bed. The metal rings scraped like chalk on a board. I stood there on the wrong side of the fabric, listening to the murmur of her voice soothing Sloane, telling her she was still young, that real babies would come when the time was right, that God had a plan. My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Knox's wife needs rest. Maybe give her some space today. Thanks for everything you did." No anger, no accusation. Just a period at the end of the sentence that felt like a locked door. I walked out into the surgical hallway, fluorescent lights humming overhead. Nurses bustled past with charts and IV poles. I found an empty family waiting area, sank into a vinyl chair, and stared at the muted television playing some morning talk show. Dad showed up 20 minutes later carrying 2 coffees. He handed me one without asking how I took it anymore, black. Same as him. We sat side by side, sipping in silence. "She's awake," I said eventually. He nodded. "Your mother's with her?" Another silence. She closed the curtain on me. Dad sighed, rubbed the back of his neck. "People process differently, Lenora. She's never done that. Not once in 38 years. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was low. Sloane lost a baby today that she carried for 5 months. That's how she's seeing it. Doesn't matter what the scans say. In her head, she buried a daughter this morning. I swallowed hard. I didn't take that from her. The boutique did. I know. He set his cup down. But you're the one who said it out loud. We let that sit between us until the coffee went cold. That night, I slept in the on-call room because going home felt pointless. My phone stayed quiet except for the occasional update from the nurses, pain-managed, tolerating ice chips sleeping. The next morning, I tried again. Walked to her room with a real breakfast sandwich instead of vending machine junk. Mom was already there, helping Sloane sit up, fluffing pillows like she'd done for me when I had my tonsils out at 7. When she saw me in the doorway, she paused, then continued adjusting the blanket. Sloane looked past, her eyes red-rimmed, and gave me the weakest smile I'd ever seen. "Hey," she croaked. "Hey." I held up the bag. "Thought you might want something that isn't hospital eggs." Mom took the bag from my hand, murmured thanks, and set it on the tray untouched. Knox walked in behind me carrying a duffel of fresh clothes. He kissed Sloane's temple, then turned. "Morning," he said to me, polite, neutral, like I was a coworker he barely knew. I lasted 30 seconds of small talk about discharge paperwork before I excused myself. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, closed my eyes, and felt the first real crack run straight through everything I thought family meant. By the time Sloane went home 3 days later, I had become the visitor who waited in the corridor, the one nobody quite knew where to seat. My apartment had become a war room. Printouts covered the dining table, color-coded sticky notes on every wall, 3 monitors glowing in the dark. I hadn't cooked in weeks. Takeout boxes formed a leaning tower beside the couch. It started with the Facebook group Mobile Moms to Be. 23,000 members, mostly harmless nursery photos and stroller debates. I searched Sweet Angel and the screen filled with horror stories. One woman wrote that they told her twin boys when she was carrying a girl. She'd already painted the nursery lavender. Another posted side-by-side images, the boutique's glossy 4D print versus her hospital scan 2 days later. Completely different anatomy. A third shared a GoFundMe. Ectopic pregnancy missed at 20 weeks, because the boutique tech said baby is just shy. She lost her tube and almost bled out. I screenshotted everything, saved the original files with timestamps, and started private messaging. Within 48 hours, I had 32 women willing to talk. By the end of the week, 51. I drove to Pensacola one Saturday to meet Ashley, 29, former Sweet Angel client. We sat in a coffee shop off Cervantes Street while she pushed ultrasound prints across the table. Same recycled face, same smudged nose, overlay I'd seen on Sloane's photo. She'd miscarried at 19 weeks after the boutique insisted everything looked perfect. She cried quietly into her latte. I promised her this wouldn't happen to anyone else. Back home, I built a timeline. Melanie Parsons opened Sweet Angel in 2019. First complaint filed with the Alabama Department of Public Health in 2020. Nothing happened. Keepsake boutiques operate in a gray zone. They're not medical facilities, so no requirement for licensed sonographers or physician oversight. They just can't diagnose. Except they were diagnosing every day in pastel rooms with fake diplomas on the wall. I cold-called Daniel Pierce, a mobile attorney who'd sued a similar studio in Mississippi. He took my call on the third ring. "Send me what you have," he said. Voice calm, no sales pitch. "If it's as bad as you say, we'll bury them." I emailed him a 180-page PDF that night. 2 days later, he called back. "We're filing a mass action. I've already got 12 plaintiffs ready to sign. The state health department is very interested." I met Melissa Chen from ADPH the following week in a windowless conference room downtown. She spread my binder across the table like it was evidence in a murder trial. "This is the most comprehensive packet I've ever received from a private citizen," she said, flipping through highlighted statutes. "We can open an immediate investigation for practicing medicine without a license, fraud, deceptive trade practices." She asked if I would submit an official affidavit. I said yes before she finished the sentence. That night, I sat on my balcony staring at the port lights across the bay. My phone stayed dark. No texts from Knox, no check-ins from Mom. Dad had tried once a week after discharge, asking if I wanted to come for Sunday dinner. I said I was on call. I wasn't. I kept working. More women came forward. A local news station ran a teaser after someone leaked a few stories. Melanie Parsons posted a tearful Facebook Live claiming harassment, saying jealous doctors were trying to ruin small businesses. The comments were brutal on both sides. Daniel sent discovery demands. Subpoenas flew. Former employees messaged me anonymously. One admitted they were told to make the client happy no matter what the screen showed. Another sent a folder of raw files. Dozens of families given the exact same smiling baby overlay rotated 90 degrees. I printed everything, organized it into numbered tabs, and delivered banker boxes to Daniel's office myself. One Thursday, he called. Health Department just issued an emergency cease and desist. They're raiding the studio Monday morning. They want you there when they serve the order. I sat down hard on the kitchen floor back against the cabinets and cried for the first time since the recovery room curtain closed. Not because we'd won, because nobody in my family would ever care. Monday morning arrived with a hard Gulf sun bouncing off the strip mall windows. I parked across the street from Sweet Angel 3D Studio at 7:45 a.m. engine, off hands tight on the wheel. 3 unmarked white vans pulled in at 8:00 sharp. Melissa Chen stepped out first, folder in hand, followed by 2 mobile PD officers and 4 more state inspectors wearing Navy windbreakers. A small crowd of former clients had already gathered on the sidewalk. Someone had created an event page. Phones were up. I stayed in my car. The front door was still locked. Melissa knocked once, official and loud. Melanie Parsons opened it in a pink smock embroidered with tiny angel's smile frozen when she saw the badges. Melissa read the cease and desist order aloud on the doorstep so every phone could record it. Melanie tried to close the door. An officer put his boot in the way. Within 30 seconds, they were inside. I finally crossed the street. The boutique looked smaller in daylight. Pastel walls glitter, lettering a giant framed photo of a smiling infant that wasn't real. The plush white sofa still had the indentation where Sloane had sat the day they handed her the fake heartbeat bear. Officers moved fast, sealing computers, boxing hard drives, photographing every fake diploma. Melanie stood in the middle of her Pink Kingdom mascara, already running, shouting that this was persecution of female entrepreneurs. Melissa calmly handed her the criminal warrant. The cuffs came out. Click, click. Someone in the crowd started clapping. It spread until the patrol car pulled away. 5 months later, I sat in the witness box of the Mobile County Courthouse, right hand raised, swearing to tell the whole truth. The courtroom smelled like old wood and tension. Daniel Pierce walked me through every screenshot, every recycled overlay, every missed ectopic, every falsified heartbeat recording. I answered in calm, flat medical language while Melanie stared straight ahead, lips pressed, bloodless. The prosecutor called 47 plaintiffs. 39 showed up. Knox and Sloane were subpoenaed twice. Both filed motions to quash, citing emotional distress and privacy concerns. The judge granted it. Their names never appeared on the witness lists again. Closing arguments lasted one afternoon. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: practicing medicine without a license, wire fraud, mail fraud, deceptive trade practices, theft by deception. The judge sentenced Melanie to 5 years in Tutwiler prison for women and ordered restitution totaling $847,000 split among the victims. She cried when the gavel fell. I didn't. Afterward, reporters swarmed the courthouse steps. I slipped out the side exit, sunglasses on, and drove straight home. That night, I poured a glass of wine and opened my phone for the first time in days. A local news alert popped up: Sweet Angel owner sentenced, victims vindicated. I scrolled the comments. Hundreds of hearts crying emojis, messages calling me a hero. My family chat stayed silent. No congratulations. No, we were wrong. Nothing. I set the phone face down and watched the port lights blink across the bay until the glass was empty. Justice had been served loud and public and final. But the people whose opinion mattered most to me had chosen the side that lost. The holiday card never came that year. No posed photo of Knox and Sloan in matching sweaters. No baby girl Quinn arriving spring 2025 letter pressed on thick cardstock. My mailbox stayed empty except for bills and ads. Dad's Sunday texts slowed to once a month, then stopped. Mom still posted Bible verses and sunset pictures, but my name never appeared in the captions anymore. I heard the rest in pieces. Sloan quit her teaching job in February. Neighbors saw the curtains drawn at noon, groceries delivered, lights off by 7. Knox took extra shifts, slept at the office some nights, tried therapy alone when she refused to leave the house. By summer, the house went on the market. Sold in 9 days. The divorce papers were filed quietly in August. Irreconcilable differences. No fault assigned. They split the furniture, the dog, the savings. Sloan kept the house proceeds. Knox took the new job offer in Atlanta, senior project manager, 6 figures, fresh start, 330 miles north. He moved the first weekend in October. I found out from a mutual high school friend who saw the U-Haul. I texted him once, safe trip. Let me know when you get there. The message stayed delivered, never read. Thanksgiving came and went. Mom cooked for 2. Dad ate in front of the football game. They didn't invite me. Christmas lights went up on every house on their street except theirs. I drove by anyway. Slowed past the dark windows, saw the realtor's lockbox still on the door, even though the sale had closed months earlier. Sloan moved into a 1-bedroom near the bay, blinds always half shut. Mom mailed her banana bread and devotionals every few weeks. I know because I ran into her at the post office. I kept working. Same reading room, same dictation booth, same cold coffee. I read ovarian masses, brain tumors, fractured spines, and every time the probe hit a pregnant uterus, I double-checked the credentials on the outside lab report. Some habits become religion. One Thursday in January, I came home to find a plain white envelope slid under my door. No return address. Inside was a single ultrasound photo, the real one from Spring Hill, the one with the complex mass. On the back, in Knox's handwriting, "You were right. I'm sorry." Nothing else. No phone number. No explanation. I taped it to the fridge next to the takeout menus and left it there. 8 months after the sentencing, I stood in my kitchen at 2 a.m. staring at that photo while the city slept outside my window. Here's what I know now. Truth is a scalpel. It can save a life or cut out the heart of every relationship you thought was permanent. Sometimes it does both at once. I saved Sloan's life. I exposed a predator who hurt dozens of women. I did the right thing every step, every sleepless night, every affidavit. And I still lost my only brother. Some victories leave you standing in an empty house holding pieces that will never fit back together. So if you're watching this and you're scared to speak up about a fake ultrasound, about a doctor who dismisses you, about anything that feels wrong in your body or your life, do it anyway. The fallout might be brutal. People you love might choose silence over you. They might never forgive you for being the one who refused to look away. But someone else's future could depend on your voice today. I paid the highest price I could imagine for doing the right thing. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Because some truths are bigger than family. They have to be.